Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today we are going to build a web app. We're going to build it in a way that makes it very easy to convert into and bring over into Android, whether you want to open it on a browser on your phone, of course, create a progressive web app, or even package it into APKs. We're going to do this very quickly with the help of AI. And so you'll see that this is already partly built as our final project. We're skipping a few steps because I lost some footage, but you haven't missed much. All I did was ask it to build a flashcard app and identify a few things that weren't quite working. But let's introduce this before we dive into the actual building of it. This is, of course, a flashcard app, and I think we can build this in 20-30 minutes. It's at a point where you can build web apps so quickly that if you're studying for an exam, and there are some quirks in how your flashcards work, you can build a tool from scratch and it makes sense to do so. Years ago, you wouldn't put the 10-15 hours into building something. You'll just live with the quirks of whatever you find on the Play Store. Today, you could just ask AI to build it for you, tailor use. And these glyphs are a great example of this. Now, just to showcase very quickly, it is a flashcard app. Show the answer, show the answer. These are not the correct answers. So there are definitely some issues here, and we only have a few dummy samples here. But the premise is very simple. We have a glyph. We want to show the answer. We want to move on to the next card. And maybe we could do scoring later as well. Simple enough. There are a couple things I wanted to introduce before we started building this. Now, first of all, why am I doing this? It's because there was an excellent app on Android that existed long ago and stopped being updated. I got a new phone and I haven't been able to install this really old app. And I would like it again, just when I'm bored waiting for the bus at a bus stop or whatever, I'd be able to just test my memory a little bit. And so you could see it's a very basic application. You have a sound, and then you're picking the correct glyph to go, and then it moves on to the next card and the next card. It's the epitome of a basic flashcard app. So Gemini or Claude or chat-gpt should be able to get you very far. Maybe not the subject matter, but to build out the interface should be pretty straightforward. The other thing I wanted to show you guys quickly first is how ancient Egyptian glyphs work. At a very broad, 1-minute lecture here, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs are not primarily, but actually, yeah, primarily phonographic. That means that they represent sounds kind of like our alphabet. So, for example, this Wesser is a sound, Wesser, and here this glyph will always have that sound, Wesser. You have a number of different categories of these glyphs, and so in this flashcard app you see uniliteral, which means it only represents one sound, b, k, z, whatever. Biliterals, which represents two sounds, so say wes or sir, like two different sounds joined together. And finally triliterals, which I shouldn't say finally because there are some that represent 4 and 5 sounds, quite rare. But mainly you have 1, 2, 3 sounds. And so this is a great example. Wesser, 3 sounds joined together into triliterals. So this old app, which I want to recreate, will sort them out because triliterals generally are rarer than uniliterals. And so you might want to categorize them differently so that you're practicing the right ones. I wanted to show you very quickly, how ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs look in a very impressive work of art. This is one, between the paws of the Sphinx. You see this great stele here. Always really impressive to me. Makes me want to learn the language and be able to read it. Always inspiring to me. So you'll see, and do we see Wesser here? No, probably not. But we will see all sorts of these glyphs as we build out our application. Now, if you're wondering how many are there are far more than the number of alphabets. These are just the common glyphs that Wikipedia has, and this is all we need in our app. We don't need to go in and find really rare usages, but you'll see it just goes on and on. I think this particular list has just shy of 1,000 glyphs, and that is not an exhaustive list. But what I wanted to mention very quickly as well is that many of these glyphs have a phonogram to it, which is the sound. So if we go here, this is an n sound. This is also an sound, and they have they're just holding different things. They represent the same sound. If we just keep scrolling down, you'll see that most of them do not have a sound attached to it. And for our application, we're skipping all of those, which really cuts down on the number of glyphs. Why do they have sounds and some don't? Because many of these that don't have sounds are ideograms. Once again, just diving back in, what's interesting is that when you're reading these sounds, just like in English, there are words that sound the same but mean very different things. So in our language, weather and weather, there, the many variants of there, they mean very different things, but they sound alike. And in this case, say, let's say ear. This is a good example. The sound ear could mean an eye, very obviously from this glyph, but it could be part of the name of Osiris, Set. No, I don't think so. But it could also mean see, watch. Everything has to do with the eyes. And the idea is for some of these, you may need a bit of help because one sound or a combination of sounds can mean multiple things. These ones, I think this is not a great example because these are all relating to the eye, but some of them might be, say, a boat. It could physically mean a boat, and then another of the same pronunciation could mean travel, because so much travel happens on a boat. The ideogram is one behind the sound, one of these symbols, and it gives a hint to what it actually means. So the boat, if it's paired with two walking legs, you know that it's a travel verb that you're moving. But if you have a boat and then an object beside it, the ideogram is an object, it's hinting that it means actually a boat. And there's many of these in ancient Egyptian, in Middle Egyptian, where you just need that ideogram hint to actually see what it's trying to say, because so many of these are reused for their phonetic sounds. Okay, I will stop talking about this. What I wanted to show very quickly is the work that I've done so far. I have had seemingly a very long conversation, but it's actually just a couple exchanges here. And I asked Claude to build out a simple web app. Its first iteration is actually quite good, but I slowly expanded it. So in this case, I just told it, separate the uniliteral, biliteral, triliteral, and multiliteral to just throw in a dummy set of words. I've asked it to use plain JavaScript and HTML only. Basically toggle the glyphs and toggle beginner, intermediate, advanced. I started adding more features as it did very well, but we started encountering bugs along the way. So I wanted to flip it the other way. If I give the sound, I want to guess the glyph. If I got the glyph, I want to guess the sound. And then I just ran into errors and multiple errors here. First thing I want to do is I want to show you guys that I just took all of this, copy and pasted it. Well, that's a lie. But I used the data and from web option to load this chart in. And you'll see this is a table. I took out the irrelevant columns. I sorted so only things with phonograms are in my list. And I split up the Unicode. This is Excel. I'm not going to go into detail about how I did this, but it is fairly straightforward. And we now have 228 glyphs. Interesting. We don't have Gardner codes here, but okay. That's all right. What I'm going to do is in the dummy code that Claude has provided us, they have just created a glyph database, a handful of glyphs here. I don't have everything, but we have the description, we have the Gardner code, we have the sound and the glyph itself. The sound, there are different versions of it. You can see that they use different symbols here. Since I only have one, I'm going to try and take this out. This is a feature in the app that I used that I would have liked to recreate, but we can't. Now, when it comes to a lot of data like this one, I prefer using Google Gemini. And so, if I can find it, I will go to Gemini and say, hey, Gemini, I have a dummy set of database here and raw data. Can you recreate the database for me? Here is the dummy set. It will need beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Just confirm you're okay, and I will provide the raw data for you. So Gemini will take a look here. I'm choosing Gemini because it has that million token context. And so it should be able to just ingest all of this data without problem. Great. Here is the raw data. For now, you can just put the same transliteration for all three versions because I don't have anything. And I'm going to paste the very, very large set of data. Ooh, why is it pasting as an image? I don't like that. So I'm going to... okay. 1 second here. You can just put the same transliteration for all three versions. Let us grab here and paste the data here. There we go. Gemini was being too smart trying to take an image so that I could see the formatting, but we have too much data for it to use an image. Now this will take a little bit. Where I wanted to show you is that testing is really important because one of the big things that for some reason Claude couldn't figure out, and we might either fix it manually or ask Gemini to step in, is that if we choose guess glyph instead, it isn't able to show the actual text. I don't know what is wrong. I originally thought it was just white text, white background, but that wasn't the case. It just fails to show the transliteration, whereas here, it makes much more sense. Something is wrong here. The multiple choice is also off, but I believe that's because we don't have a large enough database for it to actually draw answers from. And in general, the rest of it works pretty well. So we're going to ask Gemini to fix that once we have the data. Okay, I've got the raw data. I'll organize it into a database. This might take a few minutes. Meantime, see, very relevant question. Some of the raw data that I had multiple signs. So I'm going to say include all of them in the transliteration field. So I'm going to ask it to create a separate entry for each one. Actually, that is a great question. How would I want it to be formatted? Let me look at it again. Can you now make transliteration a list for each entry with most entries only containing one item list? And then some of the Gardener code, should I create a separate category for these or should I include them? These are a separate category from A. Perfect. Let's see how Gemini does. So what I'm going to do is stop talking for a little bit and just work on this without commenting. Okay, so we have something working now. That was more painful than I thought. I think we've clocked about an hour and 15 minutes in total. Um, Part of it is I am going to switch from Claude, so you'll see that I was using Gemini for a bit, which was not bad, and then chat-gpt, which was also not bad, but mixing the few together took longer, but I actually learned a little bit about the code as I went. Um, but just to let you know the struggles and where knowing a bit of code actually helps is that no matter what I did, I couldn't get them to understand that I wasn't seeing, um, sorry, this text. And eventually I had to look and inspect and see that the card had question as the ID, but the class was answer. And so it was always hidden and invisible to the user. It's a little bit surprising because I could have sworn I looked at it much earlier and I couldn't even see an element. So maybe I just blanked out for a little bit, causing me a bit of anguish. The multiple choice also hit problems because there wasn't enough. And you can see the whole thing goes haywire when I click advanced because they're just. Oh, I guess it works okay now. There aren't very if I remove the beginner, it goes haywire because I have nothing classed as advanced, and so there's never enough to create the 6 multiple choice options. So what I'm going to have to do to make this work is start classifying. So go back into my glyph database and classify a bunch of these as beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And this is really simple. I'm just going to look up the list and see what shows up most commonly and what doesn't. But if we go back to what we wanted to do, this is actually an improvement in some ways to the old app, albeit we're missing a few things and it's definitely not as polished. But if I wanted to do biliteral and triliterals, I have that option. And so we're seeing probably a bunch of biliteral and triliteral glyphs. We're not going to touch the difficulties, but it would just resort that JSON file and pick among the category. And what's nice is we could switch back and forth. So we could guess the transliteration or guess a glyph, and we can choose multiple choice or not. The transliteration system, I'm just going to remove this option, and same with the show Gardner code and description. This is a nice option if we have flashcards, and it would just show some of the details here so that I know that, oh, this is supposed to be a Senate board, that there are different transliterations. I should probably remove this because I don't have the computer or British versions right now. But if I remove that and remove a bit of the bulk at the top, just simplify this, this would work really well. I wish I had the energy to keep going, but admittedly a little bit frustrating because I think Claude was going in circles over and over. And even when I gave it brand new version that I was tweaking elsewhere and bring it back, it went straight back to the old version. And so it wasn't benefiting from the things that Gemini suggested or ChatGPT. Just between the three, Gemini seemed to have gotten the errors better, but if you asked it to create code from scratch, it seemed to be a bit poor. ChatGPT was kind of in the middle of the road, and then Claude was much better at drafting the code, but it just fell into a loop. And I see this quite often with Claude. Once you hit a barrier, it just, no matter what you suggest, it cannot get through that roadblock, whereas Gemini seems to be a bit more of a problem solver. I'm going to stop here, but because we built this all in plain JavaScript, this will very easily, with just a couple prompts on any AI, should be quite reliable, become a progressive web app. And we had another video in this where we talked about progressive web apps. Now, once you have the progressive web app, there are any number of converters online that will convert it into an APK for you. That was long, but I hope you guys had fun learning about a whole bunch of different things today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye.